This is our first lesson in Chemistry 1. This is Introduction to Matter. In this lesson, we are going to define matter, identify and differentiate the three states of matter, relate the basic properties of each state to their particle model, and identify properties of matter as either physical or chemical, intensive or extensive. Now, let us start by defining what chemistry is. Of course, chemistry is one of the fields in science. Other fields in science are biology and earth science. Biology is the study of life. Earth science is the study of the earth. So here, their definitions are simple and direct. From these definitions, it's already very obvious what to expect to learn on these subjects. But for chemistry, we have this definition. Chemistry is the study of matter. So we have this not very familiar term. And of course, if you want to understand what chemistry is, we first need to understand what matter is. So what is matter? Matter, by definition, is anything that has mass and occupies space. Now, what are the things that has mass and occupy space? Let us consider this rock. Of course, rocks have mass. Of course, they are very heavy, so they obviously has mass. And also, rocks occupy space. For example, we have this glass of water over here. If you put this rock here, the water will rise because this rock occupies space inside the glass. So this rock has mass and it occupies space. Therefore, this rock is a form of matter. Again, first, it must have a mass. Second, it must occupy space. Now let's pretend there are ghosts. So here is a ghost. So let's say this ghost tries to weigh itself. Of course, the reading would be 0 gram because ghost has no mass. And also, if this ghost tries to jump and dive into a pool, of course, nothing will happen to the water because this ghost does not occupy space. So again, this ghost is not a form of matter. It does not have a mass and it does not occupy space. Now let's go back to reality and try to identify things which has mass and occupy space. Your phone, of course, your phone, it has mass and occupies space. Your phone is an example of matter. The same thing with your laptop and also your pencil, your notebook, your paper. These are all forms of matter. Also, volcano. Of course, volcanoes are made up of rocks which are very heavy. And also volcanoes are very large, so they occupy large amount of space. Also, we have water is also made up of matter. Air, the air also, it has mass even though it is very light, pero the air also has mass and it occupies space. The air also is a form of matter. We also have the sun. Of course, the sun is the heaviest object in the solar system and also the largest object in the solar system. So the sun is also a form of matter. Also, other stars is also a form of matter. We also have the moon and the asteroids, the comets. These are all forms of matter. We also have animals and we have plants. So as you observe, matter are all around us. So we are surrounded by matter. So most of the things that we can see are forms of matter. And we also refer to these things as materials or objects. Materials or objects. Thus, we can say that the word matter is also similar to the word materials or objects. So from here we can make a simpler definition of chemistry That is, chemistry is the study of materials or objects around us. Next question is everything around us made up of matter? Because some people say that chemistry is the study of everything. So is this definition correct? So they assume that everything is made up of matter. Of course, when we say everything, we are referring to the universe because the universe is everything that exists. Of course, when we imagine of universe, we imagine of the stars, the moon, the asteroids, the planets. And again, these are all forms of matter. But aside from matter, the universe is also made up of energy. Example of energy is light. So light is a form of energy. We also have space and we also have time. So this is everything. This is the everything in the universe. But again, in chemistry, we will just be focusing on the study of matter. So this subject will not study everything. We will just focus on the objects or the matter that makes up the universe. So that's it. In summary, again, chemistry is simply the study of matter or objects or materials around us. When we say matter, it is anything that has mass and occupies space. This is basically most of the things that you see and interact in daily life. And now let's talk more about matter because that is what chemistry is all about. So first, we can categorize matter into three different states or three different phases. So the other term for phases, we call this also as states. So we have three phases or three states of matter. These are solid, liquids, and gases. Solid as in this solid gold bar, liquid as in liquid water, and gas. Of course, gas are as in the air. Of course, we are the air is all around us and also the one that is in this balloon in the picture. So these are the three phases of matter. And of course, we categorize them because they have different properties and different characteristics. Let's start with their shape. So of course, for solids, their shape are constant. So meaning their shape does not change. That's different with liquid because if you transfer this liquid to another container, so in this case, on this container, its shape is cylindrical or something tube. But if you put this one to another container, obviously, the liquid will change shape. It will take the shape of the new container. So its shape is not constant. So it can flow and change shape depending on the container. So again, for liquid, its shape is not constant. So no constant shape. And the same thing for gases. Of course, gases, their shapes are very flexible. So their shapes depends on the container. So the same thing for gases. Gases have no constant shape. Now let's continue with their volume. First, let's define what volume is. Volume is the space. It is the space occupied. So for example, we have this ball A here and then another ball, ball B. Which of the following ball has a larger volume? So it's obviously the ball B because occupies it occupies more space. So again, this space that is occupied is the volume of this ball. So let's determine whether the volume of solids are constant or not constant. So obviously for solids, their volume are constant. And the same thing for liquid, their volume is also constant. That's different for gases because for gases, they can either expand, so they can increase their volume. Also, gases also can be compressed, so they can be compressed into smaller spaces. so their volume can decrease. So gases have no constant shape. So again, in summary, solids, they have constant shape and constant volume. For liquids, they have no constant shape because their shape depends on the container. They can flow, but they have constant volume. For gases, they have no constant shape. Their shape can change depending on the container. And also gases have no constant volume, meaning they can be compress or they can expand into larger volumes. Now, these are the basic differences of solids, liquids, and gas in terms of their properties. Now, in chemistry, we would like to ask why. So, why are solids like this and why are gases like this? So, in chemistry, we like to explain things using the particle model. So, here are the particles of solids, liquids, and gases. So again, let's try to complete this one first. Again, for solid, their shape is constant. And for liquid, its shape is not constant. The same thing for gases, no constant shape. In terms of volume, solids, their volume is constant. The same thing for liquid, it has constant volume. And then for gases, they have no constant volume. Now let's explain these differences in terms of their particle model. First, let's compare their particle models. Let's compare them in terms of the distance between the particles. So obviously for solids, the particles are very close to each other. For liquids, the particles are also close to each other, but not as close compared to solids. And for liquids, the particles can move around each other, so they have freedom to move past each other. While for solids, the particles are stuck on their position, so they cannot move. And in terms of gases, as you see here, the particles are far apart from each other. Far apart from each other. Now, what's the reason for this? Why are the particles of solids very close to each other, and why are the particles of gases far apart from each other? Now, the reason for this is the differences in the strength of the force between the particles. So between these particles, there are attractive forces. So these forces are holding these particles together. And again, that force can be weak or strong. So obviously for solids, the attractive force between the particles must be very strong. That's why the particles are very close to each other, because they are held by a very strong force holding these particles together. For liquids, it's also strong but slightly weaker compared to the solid, because again, the particles of liquids can still move around each other compared to solids, which are stuck on their positions. And then for gases, they are far apart, so obviously the forces between the particles of gases is very weak. So these are the particle model of solids, liquids, and gases.